Yo, I'm lacing up my shoes, running out the door to go to this landscape project, but I want to tell you a story because I have to tell it now. So it's about your Dr. Wayne Dyer, who wrote like 43 books and he inspired tens of millions of people. He died at the age of like 83 in Hawaii. This is back in 2012, but he was the grandfather of motivation, and he spent his life helping other people. He's been on Johnny Carson, big shows, he did movies. He was an amazing, humble man. I actually got to see him live at one of his talks, but he wrote like 43 books, and I've read probably like 10 or 15 of them. I've been a fan my whole life, but he told this story in this book, I Can See Clearly Now, that I read over the winter. He talked about how at one point his father had walked out on his mom and her children when he was only like 2 or 3 years old, and he only has faint memories of his father, and his father was a bad alcoholic, and so he grew up spending his whole life being incredibly angry and upset with his father, and never even got to meet him, and his father never even reached out to try to reconnect or say hello. And this went on for like 40 years. And so at some point he got so frustrated with this, and by this time he was a New York Times best-selling author, he was a famous public speaker, he had been on talk shows, he's traveled the country and done tours, traveled the world. I mean, amazing stuff. And as he became a man himself and became a man of full accountability and responsibility, it made him more angry and had hatred towards his father. Like, how could you do this? How could you walk out on a single and do this to us? You know, like. So at some point in the book, this was amazing, like it'll make you cry. He went all the way down to like, I think it was Mississippi, and ended up at a cemetery because he was trying to actually track down his father in person, and found like his ex-wives, and they confirmed that he was indeed a full alcoholic, manipulator, a womanizer, like he was just like not a very good man, right? And so he found out that his father had died like a decade before, was already dead, and he never even got to see his father's face. And so he ended up at a cemetery way down in like Mississippi at the end of the chapter in this book, and he said there he was standing over his father's gravestone, and he just started sobbing in tears and clenching his fist and cursing his father out and crying, and he was so angry, and he let it all out. Like, he must have looked crazy standing over a tombstone, he said, being this way, but he didn't care. It was just all of, like, you know, the 50 years of suffering was all coming out right then and there. And he said when he was all done crying, he was completely like a cathartic release. He wiped his face and his tears away, and this deep sense of peace came over him. And right there in that moment, standing over the gravestone, he completely forgave his father for everything, and sent him love, and realized that the reason he had become such a successful man was all because of his father. It was the driving fuel that made him such a successful man his whole life, was because of his anger and questioning for his father, and all this gratitude came in, and he's been at peace ever since. So the book is called I Can See Clearly Now by Dr. Wayne Dyer. I really suggest you don't start with that book if you get into his books, because he's got like, there's a spiritual solution to every problem. He's got wishes fulfilled, excuses be gone, all types of amazing books. Anyways, I gotta get to this job site. Yeah, dog.